Hello, my name is David Rowley. I'm a professor in the URI College of Pharmacy, and my research interests are in infectious disease and molecules from nature. URI, and join us in the Pharmaceutical Sciences program. I'd love to tell you about those areas in much more detail. But tonight, we get to hear from a distinguished panel of individuals who graduated from the Pharmaceutical Sciences program at URI and are off doing wonderful things. If you've ever wondered what you could do with a degree in pharmaceutical sciences, you're in the right place here tonight. And so I'm going to turn this over to our moderator for this evening. Tara Marie Joanna is a graduate of our BS in pharmaceutical sciences. She then took some time off and is now back doing a master's degree program with us. And currently she's investigating molecules that reverse dormant phenotypes in pathogenic bacteria, which is a subject that I find extremely fascinating. And so tonight, you'll hear Tara moderating our distinguished panel. And so Tara, I'll hand things off to you.
All right, thank you so much for that introduction, Dr. Rowley. It's great to be able to moderate a panel and to teach new prospective students about a program that I really enjoyed. And that's, I guess, why I came back for graduate school at URI. In the same field of pharmaceutical sciences. So today we have a nice diverse panel of recent graduates from the program, and I would really like them to introduce themselves to you all about their recent experiences, just giving us a background of their name, when they recently graduated, although I believe it might be on the screen as well, what current positions that they might have if they are currently in graduate school or if they completed a graduate degree. And so I'm going to hand it off to the panel. I can have Stephanie maybe start speaking first. She is our, just take it away, Stephanie.
I think she was about to say that I am the oldest one here. I graduated.
You're the most seasoned.
Yeah, the most, yes, seasoned. I graduated from the BSPS program in 2015, which when I looked at the other graduate dates, I realized how long ago that was. It does not feel like that long ago, but I graduated in 2015, and then I immediately started graduate school in the same discipline of pharmaceutical sciences at the University of Baltimore, Maryland. The University of Maryland, Baltimore. There are a bunch of different ones down here. And I worked in Dr. Peter Swan and Dr. Maureen Kane's lab and earned my PhD in May of this year. So after that, I started working at the NIH in Bethesda, Maryland. And I now work out of Dr. David Trump's lab studying rare forms of lung cancer and epigenetic therapies. And I guess my official title there would be biologist. So I recently started that, and I've really, really been loving that. And I guess as an overall introduction, I actually really am thankful to the BSPS program and to URI, and specifically the lab experience it gave me, because I discovered I love science and loved working in a lab, and I would not have found a career path or this career path that I really love if not for that experience. So that's me.
Thank you so much for sharing. Anybody else want to just jump in and introduce?
I can go next.
Sure.
My name is Samina. I graduated from the B.S.P.S program in 2019. Yeah, seems so far ago. And currently I work at Pfizer as a senior associate scientist. You may notice that my title right now, probably on the screen, says associate scientist. I recently got a promotion, yay. And then I'm also currently in grad school right now at Northeastern University, completing my master's in biotech.
Fantastic, Savina. We both graduated in the same year, and it does feel like a long time ago.
All right, my name is Jenna Lopes. I graduated from the BSPS program in 2016. I did not pursue a graduate degree, so I just kept with the bachelor's, but I've been working in quality assurance ever since then, and I currently hold a senior associate of quality assurance position at Pfizer in Groton, Connecticut.
I'll jump in next. My name is Madison Adams. I graduated from BSPS program at URI in 2018. Since graduating, I have pursued my master's in regulatory affairs in drugs, biologics, and medical devices at Northeastern, where I just graduated in this past July. And I currently work at a biotech startup in Watertown, Massachusetts, where I work as the preclinical study manager. So basically, I work with the preclinical team at my company to help outsource the studies that we do not conduct in-house to help support our IND submissions or other regulatory.
And finally, I think I'm Christine. I am BSPS class of 2020. So I think I'm the most recent grad on this panel. Still navigating work and adult life post-grad, as I'm sure my fellow panelists can agree with. And I currently work as an associate in oncology operations at Pfizer in Pearl River, New York. And I joined this panel to help you guys realize, that there are so many career paths that are not mentioned, just in core pharmacy classes. And there really is so much opportunity out there, in the pharmaceutical world. And it's super exciting. So hopefully you guys can learn a little bit more from us tonight.
All right. Thank you guys so much for all the introductions. It's really great to have us all gathered on this panel to share our experiences. Before we start going, I guess, into our individual career paths that we've chosen, or subsequent graduate degrees, or both for some of us, a lot of the students maybe listening to this panel might be even just deciding where to go to college or to university. And so what made you choose URI in general in the first place? And then maybe as a follow-up, you can include this in the rest of our conversation. What prompted you then to choose the BSPS degree?
I mean, to me personally, I'm from Rhode Island, so it was always just, the state school. But I had always had interest in science and pharmacy, and initially thought I wanted to pursue the PharmD degree. And then I got a job at CVS in the pharmacy and was like, I don't think that's for me, but I'm still super interested in the pharmacy world. And when I saw that URI had this program, and at the time it was relatively new, so it was still being developed. And I thought that's such a cool thing, because then I can still be a part of the pharmaceutical world without having to A, get a doctorate, or B, have the PharmD. So I thought it was super interesting. So that's what kind of drew me to URI.
I have a similar experience as you. So I am originally from New Hampshire. First of all, URI being kind of far from home was a nice thing, because I kind of wanted to explore and leave the area. But I also did a pharmacy internship during high school. And I realized I didn't really want to become a pharmacist. So I ended up applying for the pharmaceutical sciences program. And I thought it was pretty relatively new when I started as well. I haven't really heard of it before, but I thought it was interesting, and doing hands-on lab work and all of that sounded really cool to me. And when I started my major courses, I absolutely fell in love with it.
I agree with both Samina and Jenna. I was kind of in the middle of choosing. I didn't know, I wanted to go into science. I was good at biology. I was good at a lot of the STEM fields, but I had no idea where I wanted to apply that to. So a lot of people who are good at STEM, I thought, well, maybe I want to do an MD, or maybe I want to work in pharmacy, because those are good jobs, right? And then same thing, everyone has their reasons, but the face-to-face with patients would not work well for me. I don't think I'd be able to handle it. So I agree. Being able to apply biology and science and chemistry and those things, and still be able to learn about all that, and the truly nerdy but fascinating world of just all the different drugs and drug mechanisms, and figuring that out. To be able to study all that was really cool. And before URI, I actually didn't know, before I don't know, got that pamphlet, or before I Googled around, I don't remember how I found it, but I didn't know it was something you could even study. So reading up on the program, I think that's really what kind of made me interested in it, was that, oh, this is a whole career path I didn't know existed, where you don't have to necessarily be an MD to help people, or be a pharmacist behind the counter either.
Yeah, I think similarly as well. I was looking into science programs just specifically. I really loved chemistry in high school, and I really loved biology, but I wasn't sure that I wanted to pursue one degree where, you're kind of locked into that career path. And as I started researching more and more schools, I came across URI, and I came across the BSPS program. and it was kind of a rarity, and that made it more interesting. And I had looked at other schools that were just starting the program, and I think what set URI apart was that it was established and it had the research opportunities and kind of, you know, the opportunity to branch out into a biology or chemistry path while still having the overall, you know, BSPS career. So I think that was definitely a big hook for me.
And for me, my brother actually was already in the PharmD program 2 years ahead of me. So I had kind of already had experience or some exposure to the College of Pharmacy at URI. And after I toured URI, I was really in love with the facilities that we got to study in. There was the brand new PharmD building and also the brand new biology building by the time I had started school. So it was just a really exciting program. It seemed like it was really unique in that it was well covered by both faculty and the facilities that we got to study in. So that's what really drew me in.
And now we also have a new chemistry building too. So all of those recent or incoming students really get to enjoy all the brand new renovated, brand new built facilities. And so a lot of you comment upon the curriculum that's being offered by the pharmaceutical science the program. And I agree completely. It's not just biology, it's not just chemistry, it's a mix. So can any of you guys comment on it? Some of the factors that you enjoyed about the curriculum, what you were able to do with that to be able to tailor it? I find that no two pharm sci students ever have the same curriculum, particularly with electives or secondary majors. So feel free to jump in and maybe share what you were able to do academically with your degree before you even share what you did, maybe in terms of research or activities, or then with your subsequent careers.
I think the biggest thing for me, I guess more of a story than anything, was that my junior year, just like first stepping into the College of Pharmacy curriculum, I took a GMP class with Dr. B.S.P.S, and he took us down into the basement facility, the clean suite facility. And I thought to myself, like, what am I going to do with this? I had never heard of it. I was like, this is so strange, you know, like it was just a class of regulations. Fast forward a couple of years, that is my job. You know, it's kind of full circle. And that was a career path that I never knew existed. I never knew that clean suites existed, or what GMPs were, and what all of the documentation, you know, aspect of it was. And now that's what I do, and that's what I love. And I think that's what the curriculum offers, is that there's such a wide variety that, you know, it's really important to take it all in, you know, and whether you enjoy it or not, you might use it one day.
Coming from going from undergrad straight into grad school, I do want to point out that I think the URI curriculum did a really, really good job of preparing me for the academic side of a graduate degree in pharmaceutical sciences. A lot of my classmates in grad school had done biology degrees or biochemistry degrees, or things that are not specifically tailored to pharmaceutical sciences. And they had a much harder time understanding like pharmacokinetics, for example, the different types of models. And I remember we had a whole class just on that. So what they had to learn and compress in, you know, I don't know, 4 lectures, we had a whole semester to learn, and I could just look back at my old notes, and a lot of it was really already hammered into my brain in a good way. Like I actually learned a lot from those classes, and I retained a lot of that information. I mean, even now I can remember those lectures. And I don't know if that comes from really great professors or professors who are also really great researchers, or a mix of both, but I think they did a really, really good job of that. And I think that's really amazing to have, you know, university class that's not just, you know, throwing facts at you, but something you retain and something that really does prepare you well for the next step in, you know, an academic career, if that's what you're interested in.
I also really enjoyed the different labs that we had. I feel like it gave kind of like a taste of what you could be doing with like whatever class it was attached to. So like, for example, pharmacology, I'm pretty sure we went down to the lab with the mannequins, and it would like tell you,
lab.
Yeah, the sim lab. Yes, exactly. And like you could see, like, as probably like a pharmacologist, what you would kind of be doing in that role. And then same thing with formulations. That course with that lab attached to it, I thought that was really cool that we like formulated our own like little balms and like tablets and all of that. And then also the last lab that we took, utilizing like HPLC and doing all these different types of assays, I thought that was really cool. So it kind of like really did help give a taste of like what you could be doing.
I agree. I like those labs because they were everyone was like you were never, it wasn't just a lab of like a whole semester of HPLC, which would help you learn HPLC, but they did it in such a way, at least when I was, the curriculum was such a way that every week it would be a different type of experiment. So you're exposed to a bunch of different things. So then going into the next step, you're more likely to be able to put that, you know, as having a little bit of background, a little bit of hands-on time with that on like your CV or your resume.
Going back to like what Christine said, like the GMP course, like that learning like the regulations and the like everything that the pharmaceutical industry has to adhere to definitely helped. Like a month into my first position, like I got thrown into an FDA audit, and it was definitely a great learning experience, but it was nice to be able to refer back to some of my classes talking about like the FDA and talking about the different regulations that pharmaceutical industries have to adhere to, because then I was able to kind of call back. So you do use like a lot of things you learn in your class and unexpected, you know, I never thought I'd refer back to a URI class in like an FDA audit, but you definitely do. So it's cool to see the different applications. It's not just the lab stuff that transfers over. It's a lot of the practical things that you talk about in class or some of the informal discussions that definitely carry on over. So
yeah, so if there are any current students here, save your notes, like use them later.
But even the lab stuff, like, so I'm in QA, so I review batch records. So I review the processes that the lab is doing and the manufacturing folks are doing. And even though I'm not in the lab working with them, having that lab background helps me to understand the bigger picture of the batch record that I'm looking at. So even though I don't have a lab position, I still refer back to some of those lab classes because I'm like, oh, I remember that, you know, that process, or I remember how that works. So that definitely helps too.
Jenna, I totally agree with you. I also do not have a lab position, but having that lab experience from URI classes and also an earlier position I held in industry, it's really valuable to know not only the components of what you're doing or what you're overseeing or looking at, but also knowing how it relates to the bigger picture in the industry and even back to the FDA. A lot of the work that I do in my role right now is to support our IND filings. That was not something that I had known very much about when I had graduated, but understanding the components of what it takes to go into a good report will help you build a better IND. So all of it really helped to paint a bigger picture of not only the skill set of a pharmaceutical scientist, but also how a pharmaceutical scientist can give back to the industry.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. My first few months of my job, I work with a very chemical engineering dominant type of department because it is manufacturing, but we also work closely with our QC labs and things like that, and the stability testing that we do on the materials that go into our medicines for patients. And it's kind of cool that a lot of the other people that I work with that might be our age don't have that background. So when we're discussing quality control, you know, sample results and things like that, and the testing processes that they use, that I've actually, you know, we've done those in labs. We've run HPLC, we've run mass spec. I can understand where those results have come from. Whereas someone with, you know, more of an engineering background or something like that, you know, that's kind of where they lose it. So that's kind of interesting to have like such a well-rounded background of GMPs and lab, you know, lab culture as well.
I agree wholeheartedly with all of you guys, whether you are in a lab position in a graduate school or an industry, or if you decide to take more of a desk role, just the classwork is fantastic as a background, because it isn't just like biology or chemistry focused. It is so industry or just so field focused. You get so much clinical as well. You're learning about human physiology. in relation to manufacturing these kind of medications or metabolism, or it really is a unique combination. I'm so glad you guys touched upon it, because that's, I think, what really distinguishes BSPS from a chemistry degree or a biology degree. It's the combination of all of it. In addition to all of our coursework, I know majority of us were involved in labs as students. So it's like student researchers, and that might have been our first time working on independent projects, not maybe related to a class. And that might have been your big aha moment, but it also could have been something else, like an external fellowship. So it may not have been associated with the university. So if any of you want to touch upon some of those kinds of events that or activities that you pursued that really helped you for your current role outside of maybe the classroom, I'm going to leave it up to you guys to share.
I can go first. So I worked in Dr. Camberg's lab, which is not like a pharmacy lab in the pharmacy building. It's one of those professors. It's in, she was in CBLS, and I got into her lab because I actually signed up for the SURF program, which was the Summer Undergraduate Research Fellowship. And I thought, I loved it. I thought it was an amazing experience. We got to do research for like, I think it was a month, and then at the end, or 2 months, and then at the end there was like a conference where you could like create a poster and then present it to people. And like I thought working in her lab was like amazing. I loved collaborating with like the grad students there, and I also loved doing like all the different experiments and like assays and stuff. And although it was like frustrating when things didn't like work out in lab, like experiment wise, when it did work, it was like so exciting. And so that actually happened to me. Like the last few weeks of the fellowship, I got like the result that I was looking for, and it was just like super exciting. Me, the professor, and the grad students were like so happy. And yeah, so I thought that was cool.
I think definitely, I guess an aha moment, maybe not in the best way, was my junior year. I was in Dr. Searham's botanical research lab, and I had taken classes with him. I loved him. I loved the idea of getting into a research lab and getting hands-on. And then I quickly realized that a lab setting was not for me. You know, it's not for everybody, and that's okay. I tried it out. And the same year, I had gotten emails about a PharmSci mentorship program that you were eligible to apply to and be matched with a mentor, you know, out in the field somewhere. And that was like the simplest, you know, College of Pharmacy mass email that you can receive. And it was like life-changing. You know, I got matched with a guy who actually works for Pfizer, and he was an alum, and he is so helpful even to this day. You know, now that I work for Pfizer, I can just message him on Teams, and it's a lot easier. But that was definitely something that was such an amazing opportunity. And it helped me not be as discouraged about not liking the research side of things. So that's definitely, you know, an opportunity that's given to us as well.
Yeah, I agree. I had a very similar aha moment. I worked in a lab and I was like, this is cool, this is great, but it's definitely not for me. But I took away so much more like skills than just lab skills. I took away organizational skills, like how to have a discipline in something. So it's like, even though it was super beneficial because it made me realize that I didn't want to do lab work, but it also taught you so many other skills besides that. So I definitely think it is super beneficial if you have the opportunity to work in a lab to do it. But yeah, it also helped to open the doors of like, okay, well, I've checked this box off. Now, what are my other options that I can do with this degree? And you realize that there are a lot more options besides lab stuff. So
yeah, I had a very similar experience. I wasn't really involved with a lab in undergrad. So after I graduated, my first role was more in a lab-based position. And I actually did enjoy it, but I was approached with an opportunity to move into a study coordinator role, which I did take. And I realized that I liked that kind of work better, the study coordination and more regulatory side of things. And I totally agree with Jenna in that I still took a lot of value from my laboratory experience. Right now, my duties include talking to a lot of contract labs and contracting out studies, and having performed some of the aspects of the studies that I'm contracting out myself, is a really valuable view just when you are, making sure that you have everything that you want in a study. And also in my previous role, I would analyze data and write the reports. So just knowing what you're looking for in report writing and the data that you want, there's really no bad experience. It's just what you take from it.
I definitely agree. That's a really great way to put it too. Is you can get out of it, whatever you kind of put into it, even if you don't necessarily like bench work. There is so much more you can learn. Organization is a big one. Time management is huge. I personally, my aha moment was working in the lab. I worked under Dr. Deng, and I cannot say enough good things about him and his lab. The graduate students that were there with me really, they were amazing. I was just an undergrad, playing with pipettes. I had no idea what I was doing. But I found out I really, really love science, and I was, willing to put the time and work and enthusiasm into it. But people, especially going on to the grad school after the fact, I think it's important to, try a lab experience beforehand, because I would get to graduate school with people who were in it for 5 years or so, and they discover then that they don't want to work in a lab. And it's like, okay, well, you kind of have to for a little while now that you've chosen this path. So I definitely think it's important to learn that kind of ahead of time, learn what you want to do and what you don't want to do. And I think undergrad is really the perfect time to do that.
So some of you went directly into working in industry in various forms, and others went off to graduate school, and some are kind of mixing both. And so some people who might be watching this might think, do I have to go to grad school after doing a 4-year major in order to get like the job that I want? So I'd really appreciate listening from both sides of this. For those of you who graduated undergrad, went straight into working, have been working for a few years or several years. And for those of you who went the graduate school route, and what were some of your motivations to decide to pursue a graduate degree in addition to your undergraduate degree, especially when you can see that people can land really great in unique jobs with just an undergraduate degree?
Yeah, I mean, I know me personally, I knew that was like a huge worry for me. I thought, how am I going to get a job if I don't have like a master's degree? You see a lot of job postings and it always says like master's preferred. So I was nervous at first, but I realized I just didn't know what I wanted to specialize in enough to just pursue a master's degree right out of school. So I figured I at least know I want to go into industry. Let me try to get a job in there. And I liked it. And I found that I didn't necessarily need to have that bachelor's degree, the master's degree, to be able to do what I was doing. And some companies will offer resources to help you get that master's degree. So I always thought of that as an option to get your foot in the door at a company, and then they can help you later on. But yeah, so I don't think you fully need one, but it is always great to get extra education. So
I agree with that as well. I was employed within 4 months of graduation, and the same thing. I was really worried that if it had gone past those 4 months, that I would need to instantly start applying to grad school. But once I got into my job and got into the swing of the industry, you realize that there are so many other learning opportunities aside from grad school that your companies or labs will offer you.
Mhm.
And those are so important to take, advantage of as well. And now, thinking ahead, if I'm not using, pharm sci lab type of work, if I had gone and gotten a master's in that, then that might have been, not something that I had enjoyed thoroughly. So it's really important to get out there and see what you like, and, and learn from there. And like Jenna said, your company most of the time will support you, in your next steps.
I agree with Christine. I think it totally depends on what you want to do. So if you're looking at a certain position, if you want to do a certain type, for example, like if you want to run your own lab, I think, yeah, probably you need a PhD and then some years of, postdoc and experience, but that's mostly for the experience of how to manage multiple projects at one time, what kind of experiments you want to do, the grant writing process, things like that. If you just want to, not just, but if you want to work in industry as part of a more independent role, then I don't think you need a PhD or an advanced degree to do that. I think it's all about look for the job that you want. If you have a specific idea, look for the job that you want, and then you can get an idea of what you need to get there. But I don't think you need an advanced degree to do it. And I can tell you in a lot of cases, my lab is mostly PhDs, but if there's a position that you don't necessarily need a PhD, and I shouldn't say my lab, the whole NIH everywhere, then equivalent experience is just as good. If you've been working in the field for a while, or if you just happen to have, you know, the certain skill set or experience that we're looking for, if you're, you know, an expert in a certain biology, or if you just worked in a certain, you know, disease for many years or whatever, experience can be just as good. So you don't necessarily need that advanced degree. But if that's something that you're looking for, then I think it's absolutely also worth pursuing. So it's all about the individual and what you're looking for.
When I graduated, I really wasn't sure what I would want to pursue a master's in. And I also graduated with a lot of debt, so it didn't really make sense to immediately go into a master's. So I started working in the industry, and I'm really glad I did, because I gained a lot of valuable experience where I got to see what I liked and I didn't like. And I also got to have a lot of conversations with colleagues who got their PhDs, and some who got their masters, and some who had their bachelors. And it was really valuable to ask them, you know, what they're doing, how they got there, you know, what would they do again, what would they do differently. And ultimately, I did pursue a master's while working full-time, so like night classes. And that was a really great option for me. And my company also offered some tuition reimbursement at the time. So it was also a financially good decision for me.
I agree with Maddie. I graduated, and I kind of I wanted to start making more money so that I could kind of like pay off my debt from undergrad. But then I also thought about like grad school, and I knew I wanted to get like a higher degree. So I kind of enrolled in a master's program. Actually, Maddie and I we did the same ones. I'm currently in it right now. And I thought that it would be good kind of near when I graduated, so that I wouldn't totally like lose the flow of like going to school. But yeah, I think it's like pretty good. And yeah, companies do offer and support like their employees a lot. I'm really grateful that the company that I work for supports their employees so much.
I quickly want to say that I've met some people who you can go both ways. You can go into grad school and decide it's not for you, and then go into industry. It's not going to necessarily reflect that on you. I've met several people who've done that, and I've met, you know, the opposite, where they've gone into industry and go, wait, I actually want a higher degree, and then they come into grad school with that experience, and that really helps them. So it is something where you know, you don't have to commit to it 1,000%. You can try something, and then, you know, if you change your mind, that's okay. That's a totally doable path.
I loved something that you said, Sabina, about like the flow of, you know, going from school and then not wanting to keep like a big break, and so then you did pursuing your master's. But how do you think URI prepared you for, first of all, landing your post-grad role? And then how did you feel your transition from being maybe a student or a student researcher, then all of a sudden to being a full-time employee, where the stakes are a little higher, there's more responsibilities, there's obviously, I'm sure, people to lean on, but now you're getting paid to do these kinds of things instead of paying to learn how to do certain things. So I'm just really curious to hear about how URI set you up for these, because all of you are in fantastic roles. So clearly something happened between graduation and now. And how did you transition? I'm sure a lot of people are curious, what's life after post-grad? And that transition period is sometimes daunting for a lot of people.
I thought that URI prepared me so well. I was actually like really surprised at first. So my first role I got about a month after graduating. It was at Pfizer in Groton. But I was working as a contractor at the time. And that site is mainly focused on small molecule pharmaceuticals, which is like a lot of what our curriculum did focus on. So when I was like doing all these different assays and all of that, I like actually understood the why behind it, which was like really cool. I thought it was like very comforting. And then transitioning from like working or going to school and then working, it's for me, it was like, okay, because in college, you're like around all your peers and like everything. And then suddenly you're just like thrown into the adult world. So I ended up like living in an apartment away from home and everything. And it was kind of like lonely at first, but once you like get into the flow of your job and like start making friends and everything, I think it comes really well. And now the position that I'm doing at Pfizer, I'm working in Andover, Massachusetts right now. So the site is based on biotherapeutics, and I think URI did prepare me for some of that, like some of the assays that I may run, like HPLC, for example. I work in a mass spectrometry group, so I think we did a little bit of that in NMR. So I think it definitely prepared for like both sides of industry.
Yeah, I agree. So like working in QA, I'm privy to a lot of different departments. I work closely with a lot of different groups. So having that diverse curriculum at URI definitely helped, because I can talk with the lab people and feel like I can keep up. And then I can talk with the regulation side and feel like I can keep up. And so I think having that different exposure to all the different aspects of the industry at URI definitely helped when I stepped foot into the actual industry. So the transition for me was a little easier because I just felt more comfortable, because I felt like I was prepared. But it is obviously, a bit of a shock at first when you're like, okay, now I'm just a student, to then going to, I'm being paid to do a job now. And like, you do feel a lot of pressure, like you have to perform for that. But I do think URI definitely prepared me very well to handle any of that pressure.
I think our program really instills like confidence in problem solving, and gives you the confidence and the ability to step up and know what you want to do, within your workspace. And similarly to Samina, I work for Pfizer and I work in the Pearl River site in New York. But for the summer, I was given the opportunity to go up to Andover to work on COVID vaccine manufacturing. And without the confidence that our program of BSPS gave us, I wouldn't have been able to ask for that role. I wouldn't have been able to step up and, change environments so early in my career, and then problem solve an entirely new department with entirely new colleagues. And I think that just having that, our background and our knowledge and the confidence that we are given kind of helps you, be very, very versatile, and no matter, where you end up.
I will say as well, I totally agree that URI and the BSPS program did a really great job of preparing us. But sometimes, no matter how well prepared you are, it's really easy to feel like imposter syndrome, especially when you are a new grad and, experiencing all of these things for the first time with new responsibilities. So I will say another thing that URI offered me was a lot of really great friendships and mentorships that I was able to lean on as I was getting through those first interviews and first tasks at my job. So that is another thing you can take away from the program.
All of you have offered some really great insight to your experiences at the university, how it's helped you in your further careers. Do you have any pieces maybe of advice with regards to maybe, should I have done something different in my career? So imagine you're back to being a freshman or a sophomore. Would you have done something different? Would you tell somebody that is in that position right now as like an entering freshman or a current sophomore to do something differently, to take a certain opportunity? And I'm sure you guys have that kind of advice. So maybe just a pearl of advice for prospective students.
I think the biggest thing for me is just, and I think I touched on this earlier, but just try a bunch of stuff. Really explore what the program has to offer. If you don't stick with it, if you don't like it, that's okay. You can take a lot of things out of it. You don't necessarily have to love everything you do in the program in order to still be able to find fulfillment in this major. It can go a million different ways. You can take it to so many different places. I think we really talked about tonight how well-rounded this program and this curriculum is. So, you picked a safe major. You can take it a million different ways and you can find something that really fulfills you in it. So just try a bunch of stuff and stick with what, excites you and makes you happy.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar. Learning what you don't want to do is just as important as learning as what you do want to do.
Totally
So
agree.
take the lab courses that you might not think you will be interested in, or like participate in a lab internship, or take an elective that you wouldn't thought you'd like, but then you might love, and you find that that's where you want to take your career. So I think it is important to just like be super open about trying different things, and just because you think you might not like it, you might end up loving it.
I would say too, don't be discouraged by all the prereqs that our program has. I know for me personally, the first 2 years of non-pharmacy classes were literally the hardest, everything up until organic chemistry and beyond that. And I was so genuinely discouraged that I wasn't good enough for the major, that I didn't, I wasn't going to succeed in it. And then I got to the College of Pharmacy and I loved every single class that I took. So I think maybe my advice is get involved earlier if you can. Go to the College of Pharmacy, absorb the environment, meet with professors, introduce yourself, and you might get a better feel for it than what you're feeling right now.
I agree with all of what all three of you said. I do wish, like thinking back, that I maybe could have been a little more bold with like some of the classes that I took, because I was really thinking about taking like an analytical chemistry class, but I was like so kind of like scared at like, oh, will I like it? Will I not like it? But now like all I do is analytical chemistry. So yeah, definitely like go out of your comfort zone, and like it's okay, because you'll figure out if you like it or don't like it, and then you don't have to like do it again. And definitely like don't get discouraged.
One last thing I would add, although I agree with everything everyone has said, is to talk to the people around you. Find someone in a grade above you and ask what they enjoyed, if there's anything that they would recommend. And if you have any exposure to people who are in the industry or in a PhD program, ask them what they like, what they don't like, and really ask yourself what you think that you would like, and don't be afraid to pursue that.
Yeah, that's a super big thing that I'll add is networking is so important, whether it's networking with professors or reaching out to people on LinkedIn and people in the industry. It's so important, and it's going to be really interesting for you as well to learn what's out there beyond URI.
Yeah, pay attention to the networking opportunities that Erin sends you, because I know I used to get those emails all the time, and I'd be like, I don't know if I want to do that. And I'd go, and now oddly enough, like I work with some of those people that I networked with, 6 years ago. So it can pay off.
I actually would like to add, like I have had, when I was an undergrad and even now, like the term networking is used so much, and so kind of, everyone wants you to get a good job. So it's just, they tell you to network. As someone who has always been kind of shy, that always gave me a little bit of anxiety. What does that mean? Will you just go up to people and be like, hi, can you give me a job one day if I'm nice to you? Like, it always like freaked me out a little. I went to grad school not knowing anybody. I got my job now not knowing anybody. I love my job. I love my lab. I love grad school. I just want to say, yes, network if you can. Absolutely. Put yourself out of your comfort zone, but it's not the be all end all. If you're bad at networking like I am, it's okay. It's going to be okay. Like, I just wish someone had told me that, because every time I hear networking, I get a little heart palpitation, because like it's such an unnatural thing to me to. So I'm sure there are other people out there that have that, maybe a little bit of a anxiety about it. And I just wanted to say that it's going to be okay if you suck at talking to people like I do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great perspective as well.
Thank you.
No, of course.
Hey, this is David Rowley again. I guess I'll pop back in, and I just want to say thank you so much to our amazing panel here this evening. As someone who teaches and does research in the College of Pharmacy, you can see just, I don't know, hearing all these stories tonight, it's such a pleasure to hear what you've all been up to. It's honestly my privilege to be able to interact with so many amazing students that come through our doors, and to see what you're doing now and changing the world, really. I mean, now, especially in this pandemic, there's never been a better example of why we need people with expertise in drug discovery. And so kudos to you. And thank you so much to our expert moderator, Tara Marie Joanno. Thank you so much to our technical support, Ian Lester, and to Erin Edmonds, who is a point person in our BSPS program and helped put our panel together tonight. Erin Edmonds, in addition to myself, is someone that you can reach out to if you have additional questions about the program that we have here at the University of Rhode Island. And last but not least, I thank you for joining us either live or sometime in the future. I hope that this has been informative in regards to whether or not you might decide to pursue a path in pharmaceutical sciences. And I hope that we get to see you someday at the University of Rhode Island.